peeps, it's me, just Steph. We're actually pre-recording, so you guys are privy. You get early showtime. So I'm excited to have Angie Racine here today, and we're going to be talking about. It's a little heavy for just Steph. However, it's okay. We'll get through, right?
Yeah, we will. It'll be good info for everyone.
Yes. And I'm just sharing the video right now onto my pages here. And then we're going to get going shortly with the broadcast, and we're going to be pre-recording for Thursday. So you never have to miss the Just Steph show, because I'm on all podcasts and iTunes and,
Awesome.
SoundCloud, YouTube.
Got to go everywhere nowadays.
I'm everywhere. All right, so, all right, kids. So we're going to talk about non-physical domestic violence today.
Right.
Abuse.
Yes.
Right.
It's violent as well.
It is.
Depending on the level of it, for sure.
Well, okay, so we're going to get going shortly. Let's see. Is this, did you say that it was Awareness Month?
Yes, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Okay.
Across the United States. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so Sky, whenever you're ready, babe. All right, so we're going. Hey, TJ. Hi. Flex. How you doing, babe? I'm going home. Hi, Betty Ann. How are you, honey? Ooh, gosh. It'll make you like they used to. You're never going out of style.
This is the Just Steph Show. I'm your host, Steph Palermo, your Italian Boston girl moved south who shows you how to enjoy life. Right here on
Love 860.
Every Thursday, 11 a.m. until noon. Tune in weekly for tips on enhancing your life by balancing body, mind, and heart.
And featuring Living Atlanta.
Find out where to go this weekend.
Steffi, you're so classic. Hey, this is Steph Palermo, and it's the Just Steph Show. Everybody has two lives. The second one begins when you realize you only have one. We are second lifers. We're empty nesters, newly single, and those starting over. Age 3, your healthy, happy, hip years are just beginning. The bat phone is connected, so give me a buzz to chat today, 404-355-8699. Tell me what's going on in your life. I want to hear from you. And, of course, we're always, as always, live on Facebook and Instagram, so you can also message us here. And we have a very interesting show today. It's going to be a great show, lots of information. Angie Racine, welcome to my show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yay!
So excited to be here.
I know. You know, when I get nervous, my nose runs. I'm not nervous. It's just I get excited. Like the show, when I get on here, I'm just so happy to be here that I just get all my adrenaline goes.
That's good.
So anyway, yeah, it's a lot of fun. So okay, well, we're going to talk. We're talking all things non-physical domestic violence today. So it's a very heavy subject. However, I think it is right in line with what's happening in Hollywood and everything that people are saying about coming forward about. Sexual abuse, which is also part of, it could be nonviolent. If you sort of feel weird, sexually in your relationship,
right.
It could be part of that as well. So we're going to be talking about this today. It's a serious subject, so I think it's important, though, especially where it is Awareness Month, and I think we need to address it, especially. I think and we'll get into this a little bit more, but we're gonna. We'll figure it out. We're going to go along and hopefully get as much information as we can so that you do not have to suffer this, especially if you have been suffering non-physical domestic abuse or somebody you know has.
Right. This is going to be a learning experience for everyone listening.
Right. Absolutely. So, but first I got to talk about football because it's a huge weekend this weekend, right?
Who's playing?
Oh my gosh. Well, for college, let's talk about college for a minute. For my guy, Paul Oliva, Louisville is at Florida State. Boston College is at Virginia. Troy is at Georgia State. Tennessee is at Alabama. Kentucky is at Mississippi State for my son, Mikey. And Wake Forest is at Georgia Tech. It's a bye week for Georgia, right, Sky? And next week they're playing Florida, which is always the big game. So, but Thursday night tonight is Kansas City at Oakland. Now, this Sunday is a big weekend. For my girl, Laura Reek, Arizona is at LA. What a fun game that would be. Dallas is at San Francisco. And here it is, the big game. Atlanta's at New England. You know, I had the opportunity to go to this game. I'm going to be in Boston this weekend for my conference. I'm speaking at the IN Woman Personal Development Conference, and I'm going to be there. I got asked to go to the game Sunday night, but I said no. You know, I know. You know why? I'm going to tell you why. It's 8:30 at night, and it's in Foxborough. It's far from, Boston, like an hour. You're not going to get home until 2 in the morning. I'd rather sit in the couch with my Brady shirt on, eating nachos.
There you go.
And cooking and be comfortable,
For sure.
And it's my birthday weekend, so I was like,
that'll be fun.
Yeah, so my birthday's next week, but, I said, I just want to chill. I don't want to be trying to deal with it. If it was a 1 o'clock game, I'd be going, but this is going to be a fun game because it's a matchup with the Super Bowl people, right? How fun is that going to be? And then, of course, for Monday Night Football, Washington is at Philadelphia. Okay, what did you do this past weekend?
So I was busy working on a speech that I'm doing next Sunday, or this week coming up Sunday, at an event called the Purple Tape Project. So I was working on that, and could probably talk about this a little bit, but the name of my speech is For Hope, which is part of my company name, and then From Hurting to Healing. So it kind of is what happened in the home I grew up in, and then how I actually found and got healthy, which was a very long journey, of course. And then I so happened, which was not intended, to watch a movie this weekend, a Redbox, and Unforgettable, Katherine Heigl. And interestingly, this movie is like gaslighting to the T. It's about an ex-wife, Tessa, the new wife, soon to be Julia. So Tessa is very jealous, and she actually uses different gaslighting techniques, which is never said in the movie, which is kind of discouraging to me because I think that this term needs to be known. But she actually manipulates her environment by taking her cell phone, getting into like her electronic files. She actually sets up a fake Facebook profile for this lady and poses as her, which this is very typical in gaslighting. And this sounds really crazy, and it is really crazy, but these things do happen. I experienced profiles my husband set up that were fake, of me. So it's a great movie to understand.
Let me ask you, was this on Lifetime?
No, this was actually a Redbox movie that I rented.
Oh, okay. Because what's funny? It's like you see those Lifetime movies, and I've explained it like this, where there's this perfect family, everybody's super happy,
Right.
And the neighbors love them, their bosses love them, and the only one that knows there's something seriously wrong is me, the audience, and the lady who's being abused or whatever was
Right.
going on the show. That's what I think that reminds me of gaslighting.
Well, and that is very prevalent, and a statistic that I speak all the time is that 48% of women have or will experience non-physical violence.
Right.
This is a huge statistic. Half of the women that you know have or will. So I always say the person sitting next to you, your cousin, your best friend, your coworker, you know somebody right now who's being affected by it, and exactly what you just said, Steph. This is the problem. It happens behind closed doors.
Right.
And on the outside, these people appear to be normal, nice, productive members of
And there's
society.
no bruises on them, so nobody
Right.
knows, and they think this is the happy. I would have never known. Why are you getting a divorce?
Right.
Hello.
Right. This is why this is so important
Right.
that a society at whole, women, professional communities need to understand this term, non-physical domestic violence, which I coined, needs to be a well-known term and accepted, especially for professional communities that are touching. Pediatricians are touching this because they have a child walking into their office with a mom who is suffering non-physical violence.
Right.
And just like you said, no bruises.
No bruises.
Mm-mm.
But the thing is,
No
I hate to
bones.
say this, but this is going to sound really sick. But you almost want to take one for the team. You'd rather take a whack than the long term.
Let me tell you this. I have a very good friend who suffered for several years in a 20-year marriage like I did, violence, and he did hit her, and he emotionally abused her.
Right.
And she said the emotional abuse was so bad, she said, I would rather he would have hit me. And I say to her, my friend, I said, because he never hit me, I wish he would have hit me.
Right.
So I and others could see what he was actually doing to me.
Right. Right,
So, right.
It's crazy.
It
It
is
really
very-
is. Well, we're gonna talk about this a little bit more, but I have to say, I had a great weekend. So, I was in Washington DC visiting my son, who works on Capitol Hill. We got the special tour behind the scenes. We went to the ladies' bathroom that they made for the women members of Congress because there was no ladies' restroom back in the day.
Oh,
So, anyway, so that was kind of fun. So we did all that. We went behind the scenes and we went on the House of Representatives, the floor, and we did all that. And lots of eating out and all of that. But it was great to visit with my son and his fiance and go around Georgetown and do a little shopping. And it was just a lovely weekend. And it was a little cool in DC, but it was nice. So it was a lot. Oh,
He
good.
just turned 22 on Sunday.
Nice.
And so my husband and I went up to UNG Delanago, where he's a senior, and did the lunch thing and went out and brought him a cookie cake and all that. But what's really funny and cool, I made a poster of this because it's so, like, how does this line up? It's so unusual. He's 22 this year.
Right.
I'm 55. So
Oh,
I
my
made a
gosh.
poster with a cake on it that said Mom and my birthday,
Right.
Drew and his birthday, and then
Right.
big 22, big 55. So I put it up on his wall in his dorm.
Oh,
So
nice.
it was just fun. It
So
was just a fun thing to do.
you're remarried.
I did get remarried, yes, in May.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And so you're able to you're able to find love again.
You
and,
can.
and you can heal.
You can, and I did, and it was a journey for sure. But you have to learn what to look for, what are the flags, because you don't want to pick that same personality again.
Well, let's talk about some. Let's get some definitions down.
Sure.
So what is the definition of gaslighting?
So my short and dirty of gaslighting is it's lies in any form, all the way from just starting out at just small little lies and deceit, ranging all the way up to sophisticated staging and fabrication. And this is what I experience. Also, it is the intent of the abuser is to destabilize and disorient the victim so that she doubts her memory perceptions, and all the way to the point where it continues pervasively for an extended period, sanity.
Right.
And that's the intent, is to actually play on the victim's sanity.
And one of the
ultimately.
signs of gaslighting is that you can't, you doubt yourself. You
Exactly.
don't know how to make a decision on your own because you're constantly being barraged with, insults about your decision making, or, even when it comes to, they isolate you from your friends, or
Right.
say you're this one doesn't like you, nobody likes you, or what, things like that.
All these forms of emotional abuse, right, are all interweaved. And it's a lot of things going on there that people just don't understand. That is actually the basis of it.
Right, and so it's sort of to make you feel crazy or unstable or doubt yourself and not feel good about who you are and what you're doing, and that you don't have your self-worth.
Right.
You have low self-esteem.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
And so it continues, and it can be very subtle.
It is very subtle. For me, it went on for so many years and I had no idea. My husband died, and a year after he died, things were still not adding up. So I went searching for answers and broke into some of his electronic files and found under Google that he was literally cyberstalking me. I was, looking up things on Google, and he was literally behind my footsteps. I had no idea of this. So again, subtle, he knows what I'm doing, but I have no idea he knows what I'm doing, right? I had found after he passed also, he passed in 2013, and I found in his belongings my personal emails all the way back to 2000 that he had printed out. So he had been cyber stalking me for a very long time.
Right.
So, but I didn't know any of this was going on. He was self-employed. Economic abuse is another big way that they abuse, and they do it in all different ways depending on their situation. He was self-employed, so I never knew what he made. He gave me checks here and there, very sporadic, and as the years went by, domestic violence in any form is progressive. It gets worse
Right.
the longer it goes on.
Right.
So what I thought was initially me just asking for a paycheck literally turned into me feeling like I was begging for money to literally pay her house note.
Right.
So, and that's a big way that they abuse. 98% of women who are abused are suffering financial abuse because it's so easy of a way
Or
for them
they
to
lord it over
control.
you with the money.
Yes,
You know, like you owe me because, you
That-
know.
right.
Or you're, you know.
yes, yes. They
You
make you
owe
feel
me.
guilty.
Right.
My husband did that to me too, because I had a good career when we first married, made decent money, and then I made a choice to stay at home with the children, and I felt bad. And again, I didn't really
It's
know.
almost you owe them
I
for
didn't
taking
even
care
know
of
the
the kids.
dynamic was occurring, just like what you
Right.
said. I felt bad. I literally could remember walking down to our basement where he had his, man cave, and saying, can I have it? Can you pay me, so I can make the house note? I remember walking down the steps and feeling like what you said, that bad feeling. And I didn't really know what was going on until, again, years later, and I added it all up, and then I was able to check mark all these boxes of what he was doing. So subtle, like you said.
I want to make a point too about cyber stalking. It can be very subtle, but Georgia law actually says that any use of digital means with the intent to intimidate is against the law. So
Right.
if somebody is constantly barraging you with texts or emails
Yes.
or on Facebook and posting with the intent to intimidate, it is against the law.
Right, it is against the law.
So it doesn't have to be overt threats. It can be just,
Right,
constant
texting.
Right,
constant checking in. Where are
Right.
you at? What are you doing?
right. And one other thing I want to talk about before we, I want to talk a little bit about healing, but I also want to say, I want to ask you about the kids. And because you and I talked on the phone, and we talked about using the finances to abuse the children.
Exactly
And
right.
how does that happen?
So, this is just, again, another widespread area of, they do many different things using the children, and psychologically, literally messing with the children as well. I know a couple of my sister survivors, and what they have done is they are self-employed like my husband was. Gives you a great avenue to really, financially abuse. But in these couple of families, what has happened is the dad, the husband, has employed these kids. They are now young adults, and he has employed them and basically is paying them, a salary they can't make anywhere else.
Right.
And therefore, he then now is dominating and controlling the children by use of paying them as employees a sum of money, like I said, that they won't make that salary anywhere else. And therefore, they're kind of locked up underneath that financial abuse themselves.
Right, or they buy them stuff and take them on trips or.
Exactly right.
Whatever,
All kinds
all
of
that Disneyland dad stuff.
All kinds of that stuff,
Right.
just like that, exactly right.
Right, so it keeps them sort of,
And what's really sad, Steph, I've got to say, this is another pervasive problem, is that because with the whole gaslighting, and this happened to me, I was literally misdiagnosed as bipolar back in 2000. Okay, I am not bipolar, I know that now, okay? But my husband would be like, okay, well, she is bipolar, and, kind of loudly inferring,
she's nuts.
Right, she's really not very, she's
Not
got
stable.
she's got some problems, right? And misuse that, and that's what they do. They're so good about engaging the circle.
They manipulate.
And right, and then the abuser gets the whole circle of family and friends, and maybe people that work within the family business, pointing the finger at that one person who is the person who is being abused. And again, with gaslighting, right, it is subtle. And oftentimes, the victim does not know what's going on, hence like I did not know for the 20 years I was married to this man.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is healing, thank God.
Yes.
And I think the emotional abuse, the gaslighting takes a long time to unravel.
It surely does.
Because you have to. It really is, and all that kind of abuse. I think, and this is my opinion. This is just Steph's opinion, that all of non-physical domestic abuse, or even if it's somebody else outside your home, all kinds of non-physical abuse is a form of brainwashing.
Yes, you can say
against
that.
yourself.
That word is often used.
I believe that it's in that.
It is.
And take a
Because you
soldier
believe
who's been
something,
brainwashed
right.
over across overseas, and all of that has to get undone. Imagine living
Right.
with that for 20 years,
Right.
subtle brainwashing, and having to unravel that.
Right.
It takes a lot, but I think what has to
They
happen.
make you think you are something and someone you're not.
Exactly.
The thing, I've heard this statement recently, I don't even know where I heard it, and I love it. It says, it talks about verbal abuse, it's emotional as well. Verbal abuse is a lie told to you about you. And that's
Right.
just what you said in so
Right.
many words just before. But I like that. It is a lie, verbal abuse, emotional abuse is a lie told to you about you. And you believe those lies.
Right. And I think it stems from where we come from, and you probably I think all
It
kinds of
does.
all kinds of people across the board are definitely emotionally abused one way, some way, somehow, at some point or another.
Mm-hmm.
However, people who stay there, usually it comes from you start off with a little bit lower self-esteem.
I did.
So
That's what my spoken word speech is about this Sunday. It's what I
Right.
came from.
So I think, and then we stay in the dysfunction that we're comfortable with, and that
We
so
do.
that happens.
And really, it's even not, we don't even know. We're attracted to what we're familiar with unknowingly. As when I picked this man, I thought he was healthy. But I was not yet healthy myself
Right.
from the family that I grew up in and the abuse I experienced in my family home. And then you really unknowingly kind of seek out what you know.
Absolutely. So you can heal, and I think the first thing, I think what's important, even though I think a lot of times if you were a stay-at-home mom for all those years, it's harder. I think if you're out there in the world and you're able to watch normal people get along, that helps. But I think you need to do some very good reading, you need a good therapist.
Right.
Someone who can recognize the signs of non-physical abuse,
Mm-hmm.
and a good advocate and a good support network of people. I heard one lady say to me, she said, after her husband hit her, when she told her sister said, "Don't be mean to him in front of me," because she was worried about him being uncomfortable, and I was like, I said, "Are you kidding me?"
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is it's like what happened in Hollywood. People around you say,
Right.
"Don't say anything because you're
Right.
gonna rock the boat.
Right.
You're gonna lose friends.
Mhm.
You're not gonna be able to get a job.
Right.
You're not gonna be able to keep a job because people are gonna think you're a troublemaker." I think it's across the board.
It is.
You say something, you're gonna lose your kids, you're gonna lose your family, you're gonna lose your friends, you're gonna lose everybody because this person is abusing you. Imagine that, and you're verbal about it.
Right. Well, that brings in another statement from
You know
my
what?
speech I want to tell you.
You know what, we're gonna talk, I wanna talk a little bit about this in terms of recognizing an abuser in terms of the dating world.
Okay.
So, because I do talk, this is my Just Steph rules of dating, so
Yep.
this is signs of non-physical abuse, and this is dating advice for second lifers and the Just Steph rules of dating. Here's a few things you need to know if you wanna be my one and only. All right, all I know is, dear future husband, don't be abusive. But I think that you should be able to see some of this stuff when you're dating, if your
Right.
eyes are open
Right.
and you're okay in your own skin.
Right.
So for second lifers, for those of us who are 50 now, you have a new husband.
Yes.
So, do you think, now I'm gonna ask you this, like when you were going into this relationship with your new husband, were you hypersensitive?
I was aware of the flags, and I had a husband who, for 20 years, who I understood I could not, if he told me he was going to do something, I did not know if that was going to happen or not. I wasn't supported and loved by him, and it was real simple for me, honestly, because I was ready and I had done a lot of healing. I was doing online dating, and I was talking online with about 5 different men, and a couple of them I engaged, well, about 3 of them I engaged pretty closely, and there was one in particular that I liked, and I could tell it would be a lot of fun, and we actually went on a date. But he was the kind of person, he was, high-powered executive, maybe a little, kind of more about himself, but he would often tell me, okay, I'm going to text you at a certain time, and then he wouldn't text me, and maybe he was in a meeting, which is fine, but it really just is as basic as this. If you tell me you're going to do something, then do it, and if you don't, then tell me, oh, I'm sorry I didn't do it because. And that had happened a handful of times with him. And the man who I ended up marrying, from the very onset, everything he told me, if he told me something, I could believe him. It was the truth, it was gospel, and it was going to happen. And it was just the way that I felt that he cared about me and supported me. But, you know, I say, a thing I like to say is that in general, people don't understand when there's that imaginary line that's crossed in a relationship that is evolving, okay?
Right.
And that could be, you know, obviously dating no matter what age you are, okay?
Right.
And we know that these teens are they're facing a lot of stuff. These girls in college, I mean, sexual assault on college campuses is a big problem. But it's, to me...
Well, they're going out with kids who've been watching gaslighting their whole lives.
Right. And
You know,
all kinds of stuff.
I mean...
All kinds of stuff.
So, I mean,
know?
it's, you have to break the cycle. You
Right.
know, if you're a victim of abuse, you have to break this, you have to have
break
it.
the cycle,
You have
exactly
to,
right.
whether you're the abuser or the abusee or
Exactly.
whatever, you have to break the cycle and say, this, I'm not happy, at some point, even if you are the abuser, you know you're not a happy
If
person.
that person is doing, and my husband, my abuser of 20 years did this to me, and I like how you describe it, you have a sick feeling in your stomach. I had that with him when I was early on dating, and I chose to ignore that, okay? But he did things that were not honoring of me.
Right.
With introducing me to his daughter, and the way that he went about it. And then I later found, again, many years later, that there was even more going on behind the scenes that I did not know. But here's the thing, I think it's pretty simple. Once you get to a point that you're like, I don't want that anymore, I want to understand and recognize, is that there is this like an imaginary line of where people do not understand when a couple is fighting, you know, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, what have you, are having disagreements and fighting, and it kind of just goes from, you know, we're not always going to disagree because we're human beings, to it goes to a lot of yelling and screaming, for example. And that becomes the pervasive pattern, is
Right.
yelling and screaming. That's what I grew up in, was a lot of yelling and screaming. And yelling and screaming at any degree of that's a pattern, that is a red flag right there. There's all kinds of them though. I mean, refusing to listen. If your partner is refusing to listen to you and validate your feelings, you know, you had something happen and you're like, well, I felt this way because, and that person is invalidating you, you know, really just not listening and caring, that is another sign. I love this little book here.
So here's the deal, I mean, this is very important. How you feel is valid.
Yes.
No matter what it is, even if it seems outlandish, you feel a certain way for a certain reason,
Right.
and it's a valid feeling.
Yes.
It's a valid, you are valid.
Pay attention to that.
Your thoughts are valid. Now, granted, you might change your mind and say, well, this isn't really, you know, because a lot of people get scared or whatever, and you know, fear, you know, I'm not talking about in an abusive relationship, so just say out of the blue, you say, okay, well, that really wasn't as scary as I thought, or you might have some fear of whatever. But I think that however you feel is valid. I remember when I was going through my divorce, I was terrified. I mean, absolutely terrified. Just terrified of the whole thing. Just whatever it was, I was just terrified. And I look back now and I go, why was I so scared?
Right.
You know, I didn't really need to be scared. I didn't need to be scared. You know, so yes, but back then my feelings were valid.
Mm-hmm. And you probably had them for some underlying purposes.
Right, but whatever, you know, I think a lot of people go through divorces, even if in the best situations, it's scary.
It is a scary thing because, you know, you're breaking up a family and you are breaking up, and your future that you thought would be so is no longer.
Right.
This is a very big situation when people are divorcing, no doubt, okay? But let me tell you, it's my way of saying it, but there are two ways to go about a divorce. A respectful divorce, and as smooth as can be, considering it's a divorce, respect of each other, division of properties, custody of children, so on and so forth. Okay, that's the way it should go. But when you're dealing with an abuser, that's not the way it goes. They, being financially abused during a divorce is a big problem with abuse. And they use it to, again, continue to control and dominate the victim. And they ping pong back, they won't divide assets fairly. There are women who literally have been in divorce court for years because of an abuser. It's just crazy. And, again, there should be, fair custody of the kids. The kids, if they're old enough, should have a voice in it. And all of these things should go fairly smoothly, again, considering that like you said, you're going through a very frightening life transition. But when all this other stuff is on top of it, you're dealing with an abusive personality.
Right.
And it's hard to divorce an abuser because they don't want to let the victim go. But that is part of their abuse as well. For whatever, sick reason that they have, this is how they operate, and I don't know.
What's the control?
Right. So, right, to have the control, and that's the last thing, and that is another important point I must make. When a woman is leaving an abuser, that is the most dangerous time for her. It is a window of time that the abuser will really go and do everything possible to keep that victim under his thumb, under his control, and many things will happen and intensify during that period, which I did not know. Just one thing, for an example, was my husband was drug mandated in drug court to provide drug tests, and he was fabricating those. And the court did not know that, nor did I, which here again, that's some severe gaslighting going on. But that is, again, a dangerous window. I had no idea I was in that window because I did not know until a year after he died that I was living under severe, gaslighting, abuse, economic abuse, cyber abuse, blah, 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 blah. But this is a point, everyone out there listening, please know if you're trying to leave an abuser or you have an idea that you may be in an abusive relationship, you are in a window of danger. And when there is physical violence, and even if there's not, the percentages, rise exponentially on the possibility of the abuser killing the victim, which happened to one of my sister survivors. And another point is that, and this happens too, and it's another myth that needs to be corrected, is that she was never hit by her abuser one time. And he showed up at the child's daycare and shot her in the shoulder. Thank God she survived. Shot the four-year-old child, killing him, and then turned the gun on himself. Now again, remember, he did not hit her one time. This is on 2020 every week, Dateline, where you see there's no physical violence and the victim ends up dead.
Right. So you have to be aware of it, and judges who allow you to stay in the home with an abuser during a divorce is...
It's re-victimization.
It's unbelievable.
It happens.
And I know that happens.
And it does happen, and it's why I do this work, because these professional communities, like I said, pediatricians, judges, divorce lawyers, counselors, alcohol and drug counselors, all need to be aware of the whole scope of domestic violence. And right, for a victim to be forced to stay in a home with an abuser, that is just going to continue to exasperate what's going on.
Exactly, and the kids are going to be exposed to stuff that they
Yes,
shouldn't.
they are. Yes,
Okay,
they are.
so we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, more Angie Racine, and we're going to find out more about what you do and how people can reach you. And this one is for the birthday peeps: Mark Morris, Matt Whitbeck, Tracy Goldman Stack, and Rob Herget. Happy birthday, peeps. All right, kids, let's see who's saying. Hi, Kenny Minette. How are you? Hi, Randy. Hi, Dr. Ken. Hey, Laurie. Bono. Hi, Polly. Hi, Chuck. Hi, Betty Ann. Tough subject, huh, guys? All right, so we're gonna, I picked a couple of doozies for songs, fight songs. So, this is a tough subject, folks, but I guess somebody's gonna do it, right?
What's that?
I said it's a tough subject, but somebody's gonna talk about it.
I'm not hearing you.
You can't hear me? You take off the Take those off. Because this is what we talk behind the scenes.
Gotcha.
I said this is a tough subject, but somebody's going to talk about it.
Yes.
So,
And I thank you for doing it. I really do.
you're welcome. I just, it's tough. I think, what was your, how did your kids react? Were they mad at you?
They thought that I was crazy for a long time, like I said, until I found what he was doing, and then I sat them down with black and white paper.
But what if you don't have any of that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because, a lot of it is subtle.
It is.
And you don't even know.
But you need to be looking for it, and that's the thing, is to be looking for it, and just even knowing some of these, what is it in here? I mean, like I said, that it is, that again, forms of abuse, emotional abuse is damaging property, refusing to leave when asked, slamming doors, stalking, stealing, sulking, threatening gestures, withdrawing emotionally, ostracizing, ignoring. Simply just ignoring.
I know when you talk, right? Or they walk away from you when you talk.
Exactly. That's it too.
Like you're not important.
So, right, and so all these things.
But see, the kids see that.
They do.
That's what infuriates me, and especially,
And
I
that's
think,
what they end up
see, and
learning.
here's what I think, and this is, I'm gonna say this right now, because, 30 seconds. There's a bigger picture here, folks. It's not just about mistreating the person, it's about.
The children.
The children will treat other people that way.
Yes,
Or
they
they'll
do.
think that's how they have to be treated.
That's another statistic. It is.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a bigger picture. They're stupid. Stupid.
Far and wide. Far and wide.
It's unbelievable. They're so stupid. They don't realize that when they mistreat their spouse in front of the children or anytime, the children will either be treated that way or will treat the people in their world that way.
Exactly right. They're either going to be abused or be abusers.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
But they don't care. That's the problem too.
But they're so stupid. It's the bigger picture. It's ridiculous.
Well, they don't care about
I'm trying
people.
to be good. Okay, kids, we're back with Angie Racine. Angie, thanks for being here today. I know it's a
Thank
tough
you.
subject, and I know you've, everybody's called to a different message, and I believe that, you're obviously called to talk about this subject, not only because you lived it, but because you survived it, and you're moving on, and you want
Right.
other people to be healed from this.
I do.
So, and before we talk about, your stuff, like what you're doing and how, what you've done and your, speaking and all of that, I want to ask you a little question. Do you believe that there are sanctuary states? And I don't mean places where they'll go and hide out, but places where, like, states that turn a blind eye, or counties, or,
Right.
that turn a blind eye to this kind of stuff.
Whenever you're at the state level or judicial level, you're dealing with different states exactly. You have different, laws, legislations that they are following, and more prone to either help or hurt the victim. So,
Right.
yeah, interestingly, because I know you and I had talked about this earlier, and we were talking about how the kids are affected. My younger son was really affected negatively in different ways, but he did repeat some of the behaviors of his father.
Right.
And I had a mom friend who, they were, this was my son's friend, and so of course we were mom friends then, and she was from New York, and with everything that was going on, I was pleading with, the insurance companies and, the powers that be in the community to aid and help me. And I was not getting that. And she's from New York, and she said, Angie, she said, she grew up with a single parent home, single mom. And she said in New York, they would have had my son whipped up into that system, helping him, at a level that is not experienced here in Georgia. And I know that, you've kind of mentioned that to me yourself, that you have, known about this and experienced it at some levels as well.
Well, I think, here's the thing. I know that in Boston, they're very pro-women. The mayor of Boston has a council for the advancement of women in business and entrepreneurial stuff. So there's a lot, it's very pro women in Massachusetts. And I know somebody who was in the midst of a divorce, and the judge made them stay in the house, and, you know, he blew a gasket, was blowing a gasket on the kid, grabbed the mom's arm, and the lawyer said, if you press charges here, you're gonna prolong your case. And all she wanted to do was get out.
Right.
And so, imagine your lawyer telling you, you know, if you press charges or if you call the police,
Right.
you are gonna prolong your case, knowing full well, you know, she wanted to get out.
Well, I was just at the National Conference on Health and Domestic Violence at the end of September. So I met women all across the United States, and particularly in South Carolina, apparently, and this woman is, you know, the director of some safe house shelter, and she was saying, you know, kind of what we're talking about, the judicial system is backwards and it's not helping them and all of that, you know. I did experience that again at some level. I knew my husband was following me electronically somewhat, and I did use the word stalking with my lawyer, and he just kind of poo-pooed it.
Right.
So what was actually, I was kind of getting a small glimpse of what might be happening.
How about reading your mail?
It was discounted.
Opening your mail?
Right, yes, that's another form of abuse.
Huh.
There's all kinds of things, you know, and I mean, people don't understand. I love this little book, and I'm not, this lady didn't know I'm promoting her, but
Well, what's the name of the book?
it's called Verbal and Emotional Abuse. It's by June Hunt. And I'm going to tell you what, this book helped me to recover because it told me things I did not know. It told me what emotional abuse is, and I love her definition. I just got to read it to y'all real quick because it's very succinct and to the point, if I can find it here. Because, here we go. Emotional abuse is any ongoing negative behavior used to control or hurt another person. And that right there, that one sentence, made me understand the different things that I was experiencing, and she's got...
So this isn't normal, like, okay, you have a disagreement and, you know, and you agree to disagree, but you respect each other's opinions. You know, I don't want to watch football, you want to watch football, okay, whatever, I'll go in the other room and watch TV. This isn't, we're not talking about normal stuff.
No, we're talking about a pervasive problem. And here are some of the things that's in her book. Here are the things that I put a little star by. Bashing, blame shifting, complaining chronically about unjust treatment, controlling conversations, criticizing, degrading, denying that abuse ever occurred, insulting, lying or twisting the truth, making fun of a person's fear. And that one really hit me because my husband would drive very recklessly and then laugh at me because I was afraid. He didn't do it on a regular basis, but he even did it at all. And I look back now and I realize when he was doing that to me, you know, the impacts that it had. This is just mocking. You know, you're sitting there talking to someone, whether it be, you know, my mom would mock me frequently. And, you know, it just kind of so slides in and out of conversation that you don't realize it. But when you get this book and you start reading these things and then saying, dictating orders, disgracing, gossiping, humiliating publicly, okay? Then anybody who gets this book and starts putting their little stars by that, if they say, okay, this is happening to me, this happens on a regular basis, then you are being emotionally abused. And that is why I just love this book because it's so just to the point. Here's what victims experience because of being abused. And here's the ones I checked. Low self-worth, loss of happiness, loss of inner peace, loss of security, that's a big one. Loss of safety, that's another big one for victims.
Well, I think feeling safe, it's both physical and like your heart. Your heart's not safe. You're just not safe. You're not safe to be who you are and feel what you feel and love who you love and be who you want to be.
You don't feel, you know, as you should. There's a pervasive, what I understand now is that I had a pervasive feeling of, it's hard to describe. I like, again, how you say that sick feeling in the stomach. I felt, and that's the other thing that I must mention, is that emotional abuse of these severities and constant patterns actually manifest in the victim physically.
Right.
I was getting migraines, and I just thought, oh, okay, well, I'm just getting migraines now for some reason at this age in life.
Right.
Heart disease. Many women, and this was another thing that was happening to me, because abusive men are likely to have multiple sexual partners and also engage in risky behaviors. What I thought were female, and my gyno also, okay, you have another vaginal infection. This man was actually passing on to me STDs.
Oh, God.
Unbeknown to me.
Right.
So these are more signs. If you are getting, chronicle, female issues, and you are suffering, let's say, headaches that you've never had before, there are all these other symptoms. Heart disease is a big one. These symptoms are manifesting
you can get like
in your
stomach
body.
cancer from the stress.
Yes, yes. Anxiety and fear. If you feel that, see, and that's the word, that's a good word right there, anxiety. I was constantly in a state of anxiety. It was, kind of a low-grade thing that was always persistent.
Right.
And if you're living in psychological negativity, and it is kind of your being, that is a huge sign that something is wrong. I
Right.
wish I would have known, oh my gosh, these are things telling me, something's wrong. And let me tell you also that there are red flags that as victims we can tend to ignore. I ignored them, okay?
Right.
Again, the vaginal problems. He was always at work, and I thought he was always at work. Nobody works as many hours as he said that he was at his business. There's just no way. But I ignored those red flags. And I did find evidence early in the marriage of that he was unfaithful to me.
Right.
And I chose to stuff that, and as victims, we do choose often to, when we can't deal with something, we tend to bury it, but guess what? It's always there, and it's always lurking, and your subconscious is always aware of it. And that was just the beginning of a 20-year
Right.
string of infidelity, which is called betrayal trauma, by the way.
Right.
And y'all can look it up, but betrayal trauma is another form of abuse, non-physical violence, when you are continually being betrayed by your husband within the, intimacy. That is, God created that for a man and a woman who are singular.
Right.
Or however, because I'm very, our culture is changing, and my sister who was deceased was gay. So, I respect everybody's choice. So, but I speak from my vantage point.
Abuse
because
doesn't always happen between a man and a woman.
It does not.
It can happen between two men
It
that are in
does.
a relationship, or
It
two
does.
women. I mean,
Right.
or whatever. I mean, it doesn't.
two people who are together,
Right.
it can
There's no doubt.
happen. I just speak from my vantage point
Right.
because that's what I know.
That's your experience, and that's what
Exactly.
you lived. So, but it can happen across the board. But we have to go get into Living Atlanta, of course, in our break. But I want, you're working on a project that will feature short stories by women survivors of
I am.
non-physical
Domestic
violence.
Right, I'm working on that. It's kind of touch and go. I've written my story, which is about halfway done. That's turning into a book. So that project may actually be my book, my story on its own. Because what I have found is happening, and I respect women, they need to keep their privacy. And they
Right.
don't want to. See, my abuser, for me, thank goodness, which sounds terrible, but it's true, and abuse victims understand this, passed away. So
Right.
I am free to speak whatever without feeling any kind of repercussion.
As long as your kids are okay with that too. I mean, you have to,
Right.
you still have to.
And I do respect that, but guess what? My kids, thank God, also came to understand after my husband died, a year later after he died, and I started finding physical evidence. I sat them down, about 3 times over the period of a couple months and said, look, this is what your dad was doing. Mom is not crazy. And then as I went forward, I began to learn that I was not bipolar, but I was living in PTSD, what I like to call present traumatic stress.
Right.
Because I was living in it.
And,
okay.
and one quick thing, who should you go and see for help if you are suffering non-physical domestic violence?
Okay, so here's the thing. Good question. I actually volunteer at our local safe house here in Atlanta, and I am in touch with the directorship, just a couple people there who know me really well, and they understand that you don't have to be hit to be living in violence. Actually, I was able to get, not into that shelter, but another woman who I know, because I mentor women one-on-one as a community service, just to help women, because I understand it and I want women to get out. But she was actually able to get into a safe house, and she was not being hit. But he was doing the cyber abuse and all the other thing. Here's the thing, I want to say this because it's really important. I heard this statistic, and I agree with it. They say that it takes 1 year of counseling for every 5 years that you were living in abuse. So I know that sounds long, but I literally was not in a relationship for 5 years and then was in intense counseling. You've got to get counseling. You've got to find support people around you who love you, who will support you, and all of that. Just get recovery and be safe. But really, to recover, you really have to be on your own, and getting that recovery for yourself and getting it for your children as well. Your kids need help, and getting them in counseling and the appropriate kind of help is just as important as you, because they lived in it and experienced it, and they're either going to be a victim when they grow up, or they're going to be an abuser.
There you go. Okay, we're gonna just get into Living Atlanta. But I want to thank Miguel Maldonado, Sean Peak, Jesus Campos Hernandez, Jackie Ross McKenna. Thanks for liking my Just Steph page. You wanted to know where to go this weekend, and you've been waiting for Living Atlanta. All right, kids, so remember, drink responsibly, drive responsibly, call a designated driver, call Uber, call a friend, call Lyft, call whoever, but just don't drink and drive.
Yes, don't do it.
So what are you doing this weekend?
So I'm going to be speaking at a domestic violence event called the Purple Tape Project. One of my sister survivors puts this on. And it's Sunday, October 22nd.
Where is it at?
It's at Studio 7 in Marietta, a really cool urban space. And
What's the name of it and the website?
It's called Studio Number 7. If you go to Facebook and just search Purple Tape Project, the link will come up and it'll give you everything you need to know.
Perfect.
So I'm speaking there.
What time is that on Sunday?
It's at 1 to 3, and it's inspired art, music performances, guest speakers, good vibes, and more. And this girl is really young and hip, and she knows what she's doing, and it's a fun time.
Great.
Yep.
Okay. All right, great. Well, this weekend I'm going to be in Boston. I'm speaking at the Women in Action I Am Woman Personal Development Conference. I'm doing the education session. It's the breakout session talking about change in your life, making changes or accepting changes and breaking free for your next act. So, okay, now Deb Bowman is every Tuesday at the Regent Cocktail Club, and she's doing something with October 20th through November 5th. The World Goes Round, and you can get this all on debbowman.com, and she is also doing a Veterans Day Cabaret coming up on November 11th, and on Fridays she's at Bread and Butterfly from Fridays from 6 to 9. There's supposed to be great food there, lots of fun. DJ Vanessa Hunley is doing karaoke and cheese on Thursday nights, and at Metro Cafe Diner in downtown on Wednesdays from 8:30 to 3 a.m. Now Johnny Perazzo is Wednesday, Fridays, and Saturdays at Whiskey Mistress. Always a lot of fun. And music every night at Dixie Tavern, City Winery. Tuesdays, as always, at Venkman's Joe Granson's free jazz jam. He's a lot of fun. And they have Wednesday trivia, and Smith's Old Bar has live music. Now, tonight is the last Alive After 5 in Roswell. That's downtown Roswell. Lots of fun. Street festival. Lots of good food and food trucks and music. There's also Three Sheets is having Thursday night flight night, and it's Pinot Noir, and they're pairing it with great little apps. And for Friday, October 20th, is Fernbane's 9th anniversary Latin night by Salsambo, and that is at the Fernbank Museum of History, and that's from 7 to midnight. And there's 3 rooms, 4 DJs, free parking, live shows, all of that. And also on Friday is Costumes and Cocktails at the Castle. That looks like a lot of fun. It's the Georgia Trust for Historic Preservation, and you can get tickets at georgiatrust.org, and that's your first costume party of the season.
Wow.
Yeah, and also Friday night, my friend Kenny Minette, he is putting up at Huey Louie's Glow it's Glow, Glow, and it's live at Huey Louie's in Sandy Springs from 9 p.m. to midnight. The food is so good there. I love it. Now, Saturday, of course, is Cardio Blast at Body Design Personal Training from 10 to 10:45, where they run your butt off through Georgia Tech. There's also the 4th Annual Buckhead Oyster Fest at Meehan's Public House, and that is from noon to 11 p.m. all day, drinking and eating oysters. How fun is that? Now, my friend Paula Oliva is putting on Buckhead Wine Brats. It's USPA Women's Challenge Polo. It's free food, drink, and watch polo, and it's all at the Atlanta Regional Polo Center in Vinings, and that is from 1 to 3 p.m. It's Halloween at City Winery, which is a lot of fun, and that's 2 to 6 p.m. Lots of day drinking going on this weekend. Now, Sunday is a 2-year anniversary party on the front lawn at the Big Catch on Canton Street in Roswell. And of course, now Sunday is Huey Louie's, and it's Kenny's Kickoff Crew. It's the Falcons versus the Patriots. Tom Brady, 7:30, starting at 7:30. But also, Home Bra, BRUH, is at Johnny's Hideaway at 8:30 at $5 cover. And every Monday and Tuesday at Under the Cork Tree is half-price bottles of wine.
OMG, right?
Yes.
Wow.
So, yeah, there's
That's
a
a
lot.
lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. I get a big shout out to my Boston birthdays, Kathy Martian Pescuccio, Woody Bavada, and Chucky Tyner. Happy birthday, my Boston peeps.
And happy birthday, Drew Kushwa, my son.
Yay!
Woohoo!
I know.
22.
So exciting. So, so where can they find you? Do you have another a website? What
Okay.
you've got going on?
Go to my Twitter hashtag and tweet anything you learned today about non-physical violence. It's hashtag what is non-physical domestic violence.
There you go.
And build that thing up. Y'all tweet.
Right,
because
right.
that'll just get the awareness going and get that thing buzzing.
Right, and I think that's the biggest thing that I want to say here. There needs to be an awareness, just like the people in Hollywood are coming forward.
Yes.
Come forward.
Oh, goodness.
Just be aware that this is going on, and don't poo-poo anybody who tells you any differently.
No, don't. Right.
That they have stuff going on. So check me out. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, juststeph.com. Got a lot of stuff coming up, so it's coming up on the holidays. I can't believe it. So next week's my birthday week, so we're gonna figure out a good show for that. I've kind of lost my marbles, Sky, so I've been busy running around. So know I love you all. Wishing you love, balance, and peace. Ciao, ciao, baby. Love you. Okay, kids. All right, Kenny. See you later, kids. Love ya. Bye.